Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a consultant in life science. I help companies manage complexity and increase performance. And for those of you who don't know my digital media marketing company, we work on websites, SEO, social media for people, and also live events just like this one. And so, please check us out at d3dm.com. This week on the episode of Life Science Success, my guest is Daniel Thadani. Daniel's the head of retail and tenders for IPCA Laboratories Limited. He's based in Kyiv, Ukraine, and so my very first guest in Kyiv. He's responsible for business promotion and development, sales forecasting, distribution management, marketing coordination, with the head office, pricing, product registration through a third party, and team hiring and management. So a very busy guy as well. And so first of all, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate you being here, Daniel. And thanks for being on the show.
Thanks a lot, Donald, for inviting me. It's on your platform. It's a privilege for me to be here today.
Yeah, it's great to be here as well. We were covering, a bit of the elements of doing the show as well, in a place that is at war as well, and so if we have to wrap up early, you'll let me know, and we'll wrap up early. And but it's so good to have you here, and hopefully things are safe there. I'll never forget whenever you reached out to me. My first thought was somebody from Kyiv in a country that's at war. How does this happen? And I've had other guests tell me, life does go on, but at the same time, it was a surprise as well as an honor for me to get to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me once again, Donald. It's a pleasure for me to be here on your platform. I'm safe and good by the well-fortified skies and borders by our forces and the help given to us by our allies and partners.
Yeah, good to hear. So would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself? And also it's interesting to hear this journey. What is it that brought you to Kyiv?
Okay. So I did my education in India. I'm from India, a very remotely state called Nagaland. I did my education in a military setup. So in place of joining the defense forces, I opted to take up medicine and came here in Ukraine to pursue medicine. Completed my medicine in a place called Donetsk, which is today currently occupied for the last 9 years. Then, fortunately, I got married. My life partner was my batchmate. He's my batchmate. We have two wonderful kids. And she continued practicing medicine. I switched on to pharmaceuticals and moved to Kyiv from Donetsk. So that's it. And that's 2 decades of journey in the pharma business in Ukraine, and to say in geography-wise, Kazakhstan and Ukraine back. So that's it.
Yeah. You said that you were a country head, first-time country head, I believe, whenever you went to Kazakhstan. Is that right?
Right. So it was in the year 2014. I got the opportunity, a wonderful assignment at Kazakhstan for approximately 5.5, 6 years as the country head. That was my first assignment as a country head. Yeah. So Kazakhstan experience, that's a Central Asia market. Yeah. Different in terms of medical affairs, in terms of regulatory, in terms of people management, distribution, the overall landscape of pharma. Yes, it's different, and of course enriching.
Yeah. And I just imagine this sort of back and forth as well. You had said that the timing was almost that you came back to Kyiv, and in that transition back, you just happened to land back, whenever COVID was happening as well. I know we're going to get into IPCA as well, but just could you tell us a little bit more about your timing in that transition?
Yeah. So in the year 2019, and I opted to come back to Ukraine. It was 5.5, 6 years is quite enough. Often expect move and quite a good experience for managing the country business. Oh. So it was just a matter that I came back to Ukraine, and in 10 days, with the new assignment, and in 10 days, the lockdown occurred. So it was quite challenging at an unprecedented time when you have got friends, colleagues, people from different states whom you know, but you can't catch them. You can catch them up. You can't catch them up to reconnect those networks and regenerate those connections. Since it's a lockdown, so it's a standstill at your personal point as well as for a business perspective to running a business. So that was how it happened.
So did you have to do a lot more reconnecting than via Zoom? I would imagine normally you would go to a local restaurant or something cafe, go visit with people. But yeah, during the lockdown, I would imagine that you probably did a lot more of that reconnecting, just like all of us. We had to keep things moving with things like this, very virtual as well.
True, though. I'll say uh, I took up a course in the year 2019 on digital pharma marketing in Geneva. Even the cohort which I had, it was of all multi-faced big pharma. Still, the digital pharma was like it's happening, but it's just a thing which is part aside. The main is face-to-face visits and everything on face-to-face. It's nice to have kind of a thing. COVID made it relevant. It's just not nice to have, but it's a must. And post-COVID, uh, in Ukraine, the war made it even fortified that this is needed. So there are a lot of learnings for that. So the movement of connecting from face to face to digital formats and how we manage both the sides.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just a double challenge, right? I mean, most of us are experiencing a lot of the post-COVID world, and a lot more, freedoms again, and we're not in a war-torn country, at the moment either. One of my favorite things on your LinkedIn profile, though, is you have the words "born in India, built in Ukraine." Um, you know, through your variety of pharmaceutical roles, can you tell me a little bit about like what you've sort of learned from that transition, or what really, I mean, I know obviously love drove you to stay in Ukraine, but, aside from that, tell me a little bit about that transition, and like, what are the main things that you would have learned in the transition that, you really carry forward as well in the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Donald. So I really personally, I just coined for build in Ukraine since uh, the foundational knowledge base, the capacity with which I had to build myself, and the business skills which I had to build myself, the exposures which I got in roles, uh, in dealing with people, in dealing with numbers, in dealing with products, in dealing with challenges. It was all in Ukraine. So I would call myself, I'll coin myself this, that it's born in India, built in Ukraine, because knowledge, capacity building, skills enhancements, and the exposures which I got, it's all in Ukraine. So I would coin myself in that manner.
Yeah, and it's so important to highlight as well. I mean, it's interesting whenever I've been in global roles, and you have to learn another culture as well. And I haven't been really immersed as an expat long term. The longest amount of time that I've spent in another country is a year, and so not the 5 years that you spent in Kazakhstan. So that's quite an extensive journey, and then also just being immersed with the cultures. A shift from wherever you're from, and you have to get used to it and sort of figure out what do you adapt to and what do you keep from your original culture as well.
True, very true.
Yeah. And so, IPCA, can you tell me a little bit more about IPCA and what it is? What do they do and what do they make?
Yeah. So as we had a short discussion prior to that for our podcast, uh, IPCA Laboratories is a top-notch pharma company in pharma manufacturing company, which is integrated and produces branded generic products with 350 formulations and 80 APIs in various therapeutic areas. So, in itself, it's a world leader in APIs. As I mentioned, in the initial period of COVID, there was a huge requirement of HCQs across the globe, and IPCA Laboratories was at the time one of the major contributor to supplying that HCQs across the globe. So in that way, I hope you can understand the scale of the organization.
Yeah.
It's quite an old organization. It's 75 years old organization. Today, in fact, it's trending. It's a trending pharma company on stocks. So it's great. The shareholders are benefiting out of it. The company majors in pain management, rheumatology, anti-malaria products, and CVCs, in which it's a global leader in these segments. It has footprints in some 120 countries across the globe, and it has world-class certified plants to manufacture both the APIs and formulations. So, being in the branded generic space, which takes off-patent products to market, it has world-class medical marketing teams to to cater uh, to therapies for patients of all possible segments, and just not segments, and paying brackets too. It produces products since it's the branded generic segment, so there is economies of scale. So you have got the cost, yeah, you have got economies of scale in which you have definitely a cost added to that, which you have an upper value to that. So um, the medical marketing team, which I'll say is one of the best branded generic medical marketing team, and which has insight, well-crafted informations based on evidence-based medicines. It's just not evidence-based medicines by the innovator trials, which we recopy, reprint, and submit. We have our own unbiased government trials to which we incorporate with the innovators trials which we have, and then cater to the needs and engagements to across the HCPs. So it's just not only one of the segments of HCPs. Both the knowledge seekers HCPs will cater to, and the independent form of HCPs too. It caters this communications
Yeah.
from trials. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, obviously a broad based, business from the generics, branded generic standpoint. But then, in addition to the base where you're at in Kyiv, are there other areas of the world where IPCA has a footprint as well?
Yeah. So as I said, that IPCA has a footprint in 120 countries across the globe. So it has a huge business from the post-Soviet uh, space. in the branded generic segment, and it has a very good solid footprint in Africa, in South America, and in Southeast Asia. So these are the informed in terms of branded generics. They are quite vibrant and growing at a very steady pace.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And of course, the API segment, as I've told, API segment, it's all out across the globe.
yeah. I mean, it's a broad, definite broad reach, but also very important, supply for a lot of people, around the world as well. There's some questions that I'd like to dive into regarding you and things that you've learned along the way. What's the most important leadership lesson that you've learned along the way?
Uh, Thank you for the question. Very interesting question. Say, uh, so I had the opportunity, Donald, to work for different sets of organizations, organizations which are really structured and SOX compliant organizations to semi-structured, promoter-driven organizations. So, uh, in both the cases, there is one thing which is very much pertinent in both the cases. And having been privileged to have the leadership styles in both the systems, trust and integrity, which has been taught, which I have imbibed from these organizations. So you can learn, unlearn, and relearn skills, but trust and integrity is a time-tested quality for any individual.
And
And
are you thinking of trust from I guess your trust going out to people, or the trust that you build? The trust, either the trust that you're receiving or the trust that you're, um, you know, giving to people as well.
so, Donald, I'll say it's a both way. It's a both way. Yeah, it's a both way thing. So even when you look into the business, if you have trust, is what basically you have said and done without the discrepancy. Then a trust is built. Trust is not built fast. So it's you have said and done. It's trust, and
Mm,
then the integrity is both in terms of finance. Uh, just a minimum thing is your location, even is where you are. In fact, that's very important. Uh, uh, on every scale, said, visualized, and done has to have the same sacrosanct thing. That counts to be that will count into an integrity. So
yeah.
that's what advice which I have embedded from all this across these organizations, either structured, really well structured, or semi-structured organizations.
Right. Yeah, and I think of integrity as something that you either decide is something that is important to you or is not. And hopefully in most people it is something that you strongly believe in as well, because once you sort of violate it, it's one of those things that I don't feel like you can easily get back, right? I mean, once you have sort of demonstrated that you're not somebody that has very high integrity, it's very hard to get that element back as well.
True,
Yeah.
true, very true. Another moment I would like to add over here is that what advices I have taken in context with the current scenarios which I'm faced over, working and planning on controllables. You need to plan and work only on the controllables. Since post-COVID and in a war situation, a leadership demonstration for self and the team can be working only on controllables.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there are three questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
So, don't. It's a very beautiful question, and I'll take in context in today's context, the ecosystem in which I live and Ukraine is today. I have got an article on that word itself, resilience, by the pharma business of Ukraine. Resilience is quite, much talked, but best forgotten value. uh, so I'll share like a very simple thing. There was a hashtag trending in the business fraternity of Ukraine. In place of the work-life balance in Ukraine, it's the war-life balance.
My
That
goodness.
was a hashtag trending. So in Ukraine, we don't discuss on what's happening or what has happened. Are you safe? Fine. What's next? We discuss on that. Where you are, what's it, things are moving. So uh, we don't discuss on what we can't control. We
Mm,
discuss on what we can control.
yep.
So in that context, resilience, if I say that inspires me, is resilience from my family, my colleagues, and the business fraternity for overall. I would say if in the value chain or the pharma value chain, the resilience inspires me from the payers, the pharmacies, the distribution, the regulatory organs, how they have showed the resilience in this situation. For an example, the pharmacies during the deep blackout periods in Ukraine, the pharmacies went ahead getting generators to operate their pharmacies. One. Two, they went ahead in getting their orders placed on the cloud, not online, not the regular online booking system, but they placed their orders on the cloud. It was collected on the cloud by the central warehouse, and then it was then distributed. So that's how the resilience was shown at the retailers segment. Where resilience showed at the distribution segment was that one of the major national distributors lost two of its warehouses. Still, it continued functioning. It didn't close down. It continues functioning. The retail outlets in Ukraine, it has moved down from 20,000 to 15,000. Still, it's functioning. They have not closed down.
Wow.
The organizational, the authorities, I'll give the regulators too a big tick mark. Uh, no, well done job by the government, state authorities too, since uh, for patients who are on reimbursement on chronic therapies like in cardiovascular prescriptions or psychiatric prescriptions or your endocrinological prescriptions, uh, all these prescriptions moved into paperless prescriptions.
Mm,
That means a patient getting a prescription, a e-prescription at the uh, front end of the war activities. That's suppose Nikolaev, Kherson, those states can come to Kyiv or some better peaceful area to get their prescription in no the drug from that. So this is the level of resilience they have shown. They have not stopped. The regulatory organs in Ukraine have not stopped to give all the certifications. They have extended the certifications where they are compliant to major norms. In Ukraine, we comply to the European pharmacopoeia. So in case the products were complying to the European pharmacopoeia, they have got extensions in this war period. So these are to name a few things which where the state as well as uh, the civil society, if you call it, all the
right.
payers, the pharmacy, the distributors, right, and of course, organization, company like IPCA, it's still functioning. Thanks, they are keeping us move. So in all, that's the complete thing which I would like to that inspires me. So that's resilience, war life balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I completely agree with you. It's amazing to see, as well, just the strong resilience of the country, the people, etc. I mean, it's just amazing to see from the outside. The next question: what concerns you?
Concerns me in terms of people and in terms of numbers. In terms of people, concerns me is indecency and political approach. Since since it creates a poor working atmosphere and drains down all the positive energy. In terms of numbers, uh, a discrepancy is in pattern or a small smoke. That makes me concerned because that needs very urgent uh, addressed. It has to be urgently addressed. The root cause has to be known. So these things concern me, which is within my purview. But of course, concerns me is in terms of people, indecency and a very political approach if a person has.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I mean, that kind of carries through even globally as well. And thank you for sharing that. Last question: what excites you?
Oh, thank you. What excites me, it's all the challenging situation in business, the assignments which I have. Something which is complex, excites me. But uh, any complex situations with a positive intent. I would say a positive. If you have that assignment or the complex situation gives a positive impact to your immediate ecosystem around you, to within you, your colleagues, and uh, around your business, that excites me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I completely am agreeing with that one as well. And so, Daniel Thadani, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here. And especially, given the situation in Kyiv. Yeah, I hope that you stay safe and that everybody with IPCA as well, enjoys a lot of success during this time period. And yeah, stay safe as well.
Thanks a lot, Donald. And it was good. We didn't have the air alarm. I was safe. And we
That,
had the podcast.
That's right. That's right. A lot of people in the United States, I mean, I would imagine are one, going to be surprised by seeing you, but then two, as well, the news sort of exemplifies, a lot of the battle, and so it's hard to understand how life goes on, and so I do hope that you stay safe.
Thanks a lot, Donald, for inviting me on the podcast. It was a pleasure and a privilege. I'm quite humbled to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much.